You've gotten your certificates now, or you've started your military transition. Someone sent you a message on LinkedIn, Indeed, or JS Firm. Hello, I've discovered your resume, and it appears you will be a perfect fit for an opportunity we have with blank. If you're interested, please send us a message. That's pretty much how every contract position is offered, whether that contract is overseas, stateside, in a combat zone, or just down the road at the local military installation. That's exactly how my contracting experience started. For this video, we're going to take a trip back in time. The year is 2019. Things were going great, and life was looking up. I was getting ready to get out of the military and looking for jobs. I had no idea of the horror to come with COVID-19. I created a LinkedIn account and tailored it to show off my aviation maintenance experience. Shortly after launching my LinkedIn, I was contacted by a recruiter for a contracting company who will for now remain nameless. This particular contractor happened to be one that was working overseas in Afghanistan, being a fresh-faced, low-experienced mechanic who knew nothing outside of his military contract. I looked at the six-figure end number of roughly $136,000 and the rotation schedule of 90 days on, 30 days off, and thought to myself, yeah, I could do that. I've been to Afghanistan a few times now. I know what to expect. It won't be too bad. Boy, was I wrong. Had I just done a little contract shopping or even looked stateside for something I could qualify for, I would have ended up making a much better choice. Granted, I was still able to do a lot despite COVID messing everything up. I paid all of my debts, put money in savings, and bought my family a home. So I did okay. I want all of you to learn from my mistakes and make more informed decisions about your career path. Look at everything in the contract. Don't just take what the recruiter says at face value. To give an example, my contract was 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. The compensation was $17 and some change for the first 80 hours work, and then time and a half after that. They paid a travel stipend to go home and back on your 30 days off. But you didn't receive it until you got back in country. You got no pay while you were off either. Health benefits were practically non-existent. Take into account that all the cost of living expenses were covered as we were on base in a combat zone. COVID really hit hard about 2 months into my 12-month contract. We couldn't go home, and the guys who did go home couldn't come back. I ended up working 367 days straight with no days off thanks to COVID. Leadership struggled to keep morale up, and because it was a government contract, we had a lot of extra stuff to deal with. As with so many other careers and jobs, we had a lot of management that didn't understand how to manage it. Overall, I think that the 12 plus months I spent out there as a civilian was harder mentally and physically than any of the time I spent over there in uniform. So many of the people I worked with struggled even harder. Some even terminated their contracts early just to be able to get away from the environment and find something less stressful to do stateside. Some haven't even come back to aviation. Recently, I applied for another out-of-US contract from the same company. After running cost of living expenses and everything else I needed, I discovered that I was going to earn less than I would working for a major airline if I chose to go that route. Especially considering the most recent pay scales for places like Delta Airlines were topping out after 5 years, close to $60 an hour. I know that this is a fairly common story among contracts, even stateside. The big money is only big with contracting if you're looking to go somewhere that gets you out of taxes. But if you're not looking to get your certificate right away, or you're a civilian who's almost done with their certificates, and you live close to a military installation, those contracts are generally zero experience type places where you can go and they will train from zero experience. They are a good stepping stone, and certain personalities do amazingly in them. I know some who have worked in contracting for 10 plus years and love it, even if they do complain a lot. If you know someone who complains a lot, why don't you drop a like and a comment? I'd love to get a laugh about something ridiculous that they complained about. Maybe I'll collect the responses and do a fun video reading them and responding to them. Now, military contracting isn't the only type of contracting out there. A lot of hiring agencies will hire temp to perm for places like Boeing, Alaska, Delta, and other big name companies. These contracts are slightly better than the ones for the military. As far as benefits and pay go, I can't say with 100% certainty exactly what those pay scales are, since a lot of companies aren't legally allowed to disclose the compensation unless you're in the hiring process. I can say, though, that the wages are much more comparable to mainline companies' wages. Typically, you'll see anywhere from $25 to $40 an hour starting, depending on location and experience. Some of these contract gigs are also what's considered a float position. You'll float between bases and earn per diem that's usually pretty good to pad your pockets if you live cheap on the road. This can be a great way to go if you like to travel but don't necessarily want to work on what's called an AOG team, or aircraft on ground. Some places hire all their workers under contract, even to work for them directly. These places can be great stepping stones to gain experience if you decide not to re-up your contract. At the end of the day though, where you go, what you do, and how you like or dislike a workplace, contract is down to you as the individual. I turned down an offer for a very large company and might have burned a bridge there accidentally because I just didn't see myself fitting the role they needed to have me fill. I just couldn't see myself as an assembly line machine. Another company I decided not to work for just because the environment reminded me too much of the military. They hired a lot of vets and it was just very much the same hilarious, frustrating workplace. And the fact that I took a contract job doing the exact same job I was doing as a member of the Army instead of taking that one just makes me laugh every time. I hope you're able to learn something from my ramblings and at least benefit a little from my suffering through experience. Go ahead and click the video to my left to continue learning along with me on your aviation journey. Thanks for coming. See you later. GoPro, stop recording.